Damian Lillard wearing Bucks green after the blockbuster trade, making a home in Milwaukee.
He is a superstar.
Imagine pairing two players, both of whom are either all-stars or superstars, yet right from the get-go, you could tell they were doomed to fail. Whether it's a clash in personalities or playstyles, or maybe the rest of their team was simply not built properly. In this video, we're gonna take a look at 5 different NBA duos in recent years who were destined to flop. And let's examine why they failed.
Oh, look at that. Quick hands by Dame forces the turnover to Giannis.
Giannis and Dame. Now, I will admit, upon Damian Lillard's arrival to Milwaukee, I thought they'd be a fantastic duo. You combine the NBA's most physically dominant big with one of the best scoring point guards ever, you should expect positive results. But there's one thing that slipped everyone's mind, and one thing that caused this duo to not excel in the way they hoped. They are incompatible in the pick and roll. What do I mean by this exactly? So, Damian Lillard is a pick and roll savant. In his final year in Portland, he led the league in points scored as the pick and roll ball handler, with the highest efficiency out of anyone who scored at least 10 points a game in the pick and roll. Statistically, he was the best pick and roll guard in the entire league. Then, you fast forward a year later, when Dame joined the Bucks, his effectiveness in the pick and roll plummeted. So what gives? Giannis happens to be a player who does not like setting picks, and when he does set one, he doesn't do it very well. Frequently, when Dame tries to run a pick and roll with Giannis, it doesn't end well. More often than not, Giannis prefers to slip the screen and receive the ball to score. Even though he's technically a big man, Giannis actually prefers running the pick and roll himself, not setting screens and rolling for somebody else. This leads to an awkward dilemma. As a result, Dame usually stands in the corner and does nothing. He's never been, an off-the-ball moving player. So when he's not running the pick and roll, it nullifies the strongest part of his game. This is the main reason why this duo did not work. It's not because either of them underachieved, they just didn't feel comfortable enough adjusting to each other's strengths. Instead, they both wanted to play the same way they've played for so many years without adapting. There's been heated debates between Blazers and Bucks fans. Some believe Giannis should not have to adjust because he won a championship as the main option doing what he does. Whereas Blazers fans argued you're not using Dame in the correct way. You gotta run more pick and roll because Dame's Portland teams were always very good offensively. Both sides kinda have a point. Dame actually had his best games without Giannis on the court since he was able to return to his roots and dominate the pick and roll. Regardless, there were more problems with the Bucks that set this pair up for failure. For example, the supporting cast was at its worst it's ever been in the era of Giannis. Like, if you have to rely on Gary Trent Jr. to win you games, I don't think your team is in position to contend. You add injuries and age on top of that, being the second oldest team in the league, it's not surprising they broke down by the time the playoffs started. Plus, Giannis and Dame are also quite susceptible to injury. It impacted both of them more than they let on. But overall, it was their inability to complement each other's games that ultimately saw this duo collapse. Zach LaVine plus DeMar DeRozan. Two different teams in two different eras, Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan's partnership both in Chicago and Sacramento have not produced the results their teams hoped. Led by these two stars, their respective teams made one first-round appearance. That was in 2022, where they lost in 5 games. Every other time, they've been missing the playoffs or losing in the play-ins to teams that they were expected to beat. Especially in 2025 against a Mavs team without Kyrie Irving and a crippled Anthony Davis who just returned from injury. There's no reason the Kings should be losing that.
Talked about the defensive impact of Anthony Davis. He certainly showed that tonight in their entire team.
There's no excuse anymore for why this duo always underperforms when the stakes are high. Why is that, though? Let's look at DeRozan. He's a guy with a playstyle that's honestly quite soothing to watch when his shots are falling. In an era where the three-point shot is abundant and pace and space offenses are the standard, the moment DeRozan steps onto the court, his entire team's game plan changes. Instead of excessive ball movement, you end possessions with a DeRozan ISO. Instead of the fast-paced playstyle that the Kings embraced during the era of De'Aaron Fox, you now have a more methodical, slower-paced half-court offense. These are not inherently bad changes. There are plenty of teams, like the Nuggets, for example, who found success with a slower offense and less threes. But DeRozan is not Jokic. You combine it with his lack of a three-point shot, it results in every team he's been on being in the bottom half in three-point efficiency. In the 2022-23 season, the year when the Kings made the playoffs, they were 6th in three-point attempts and 9th in percentage. In the 2024-25 season, with DeRozan as the main guy, they dropped to 24th in attempts and 20th in percentage. In fact, their entire team, all of their role players, experienced a significant regression. Some folks would call it a mysterious coincidence, but it's not. It's because when DeRozan is on the court, the floor shrinks so much that defenders can now contest them. Their shots are harder, and thus their percentages drop. There's no doubting DeRozan's talent and his immense skill in scoring, but he does it in a way that's the antithesis of what made this Kings team successful in the first place. On the other hand, you have Zach LaVine, who, much like DeRozan, has a score-first mentality, and he was never a good passer either. While he excels moving off the ball, LaVine has not benefited from being in the off-ball role. The best passer, the guy with the best court vision on this team, is their center, Domantas Sabonis. He's used as a tool to help this duo score. In half a decade of being in Sacramento, Sabonis might possibly be the Kings' best player, but he has never been the go-to guy at the end of games. As a result, you're left with this disaster duo of DeRozan and LaVine trying to carry the team in high-pressure situations, which neither of them have ever been good at. Heck, LaVine made the playoffs just once in his 10-plus years in the NBA. If these two didn't work in Chicago, it certainly won't work in Sacramento. Devin Booker plus Kevin Durant. When Durant joined the Phoenix Suns, it was about a year and a half after they reached the finals. On paper, it seemed like the addition of Durant would push them over the top and dominate a post-Golden State Western Conference. In fact, according to the odds, right after the trade for Durant, the Suns jumped to the second-best odds to win the championship. Even the most pessimistic sportsbooks were very high on the Suns, and even with Durant's injury, the Suns were still favored to come out of the West once he recovers.
Durant able to hit, and Booker fades and hits. Will fire and hit. Jittering into the paint, Booker. Oh my!
In the second round, this two-man duo, especially Booker, put up the most insane performances I've ever seen. Just the way they were hitting mid-range shots like no other. It was a throwback to a style of basketball that we thought was extinct. They dominated the Nuggets from a single area. Unfortunately, they still lost the series in 6 games, and that's where their biggest flaw was exposed. In the process of acquiring Durant, the Suns gave up all of their key role players who helped them reach the finals in the first place. The rest of their roster was basically a shell of a former finals contender, so they relied too much on Booker and Durant. Over the years, this duo saw several changes with their roster. For example, DeAndre Ayton, after many years of scrutiny, got traded for Jusuf Nurkic, who was somehow even softer and less effective than Ayton. Then Chris Paul got traded in a horrendous deal that brought them Bradley Beal. Their team got older as well with the addition of Eric Gordon. Essentially, in the span of a few years, the Suns went from a promising young, rising squad to an old, washed-up roster, with players who simply did not care anymore. The result? This dynamic scoring duo accomplished nothing more than one second-round appearance. Instead of waiting, developing, growing the young core around Booker, they traded away everything, including 4 unprotected first-round picks. That's the worst thing about getting a new owner, one with unlimited money to spend, because you end up spending like crazy without any strategy and taking on ridiculous contracts. Joel Embiid plus Paul George. Ah yes, the Glass brothers. Ever since Embiid's MVP season, his impact on the NBA landscape has been non-existent. The sheer thought process of pairing 2 of the most injury-prone stars in the entire league is comical to begin with. But even worse when you realize this duo makes up nearly 70% of the entire team's salary cap. I think when the Sixers initially gave George a $200+ million deal, the expectation was Embiid would be healthy too, and this duo would have a chance to lead the Sixers to a title. With Daryl Morey stating, quote, "George would give us the additional firepower alongside Embiid and Maxey to take on the Celtics." However, midway through the season, when it was obvious they couldn't stay on the court, the Sixers did a 180 and pivoted to the old tanking strat. Instead of rushing these two back, they decided to embrace the tank, losing 14 of their final 15 games, and fell so hard down the standings that they ended up with decent odds for a high lottery pick.
The Philadelphia 76ers select VJ Edgecombe from Bimini, Bahamas and Baylor University.
They selected VJ Edgecombe with the 3rd pick. The Sixers' original plan was to build a contender around Embiid, but since that plan basically failed, they initiated their backup plan. A franchise led by Tyrese Maxey, along with young upcoming players like Jared McCain and VJ Edgecombe. By stockpiling a plethora of young talent, the Sixers' future looks much better than their present. Paolo Banchero plus Franz Wagner. Yeah, it might be controversial to label these two all-star level players as a duo that's set up to fail. They're both very good, but upon joining the Magic, they were indeed set up for failure, with most of the blame going to the team for improperly building around them, which leads to their weaknesses being exploited year after year. On paper, the Magic have two 6'10" versatile studs, the ideal archetype for the modern NBA. On the court, sadly, their shaky shooting ability and their heavy reliance on taking contested shots have not been a formula for success. The team wins games because of their defense, the entire team's defense from top to bottom. They are arguably the most disciplined team in the league. Offensively, it's been a monumental struggle. As a team, the 2024-25 season saw their three-point percentage hit a new low, a putrid 31.8%. By far the worst three-point shooting team in the league. Due to a lack of shooting from their star duo, the spacing is non-existent. Even players like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who shot like 40% from three in the previous 4 years. He came to Orlando and immediately recorded his worst shooting season in a decade. You could ask the question, are Banchero and Wagner struggling to shoot threes because the team spacing is so bad? Or is the fact that they're both poor shooters to begin with, and they are the reason why the rest of their team shoots poorly? The floor is so congested, and in a playoff atmosphere, the entire team's stagnant offense gets exploited to no end. There's only so much you can do on defense to stop them. At some point, you need to score, and they can't do that. Because Banchero and Wagner use so many possessions, the Magic don't have a true point guard to run the offense. As great as they are, they always try to find their own shot first. Maybe something needs to change. They need to change, and this entire franchise needs to rethink how to construct a roster around this duo. Normally, I don't like blasting young players for not succeeding because, they're young, they're still learning. But the Magic have been so bad offensively for years now, and it's gotten worse. So you have to wonder, can they ever lift the team to become even an average offensive team? Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 5 NBA duos who were set up to fail from the start. Let me know in the comment section, do you see duos like DeMar and Zach LaVine, working out? Can you see them leading the Kings anywhere? Can you think of any other underachieving duos? Let me know in the comment section. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.